welcome to the Healing Hearts interview series. I'm your host, Sophia Jacob, the founder of Healing Hearts. Today, I'll be interviewing Ishita Mann, the founder and CEO of Youth Helping Youth Saskatchewan. Welcome, Ishita. Thank you for being here and taking the time to hop on.
Thank you for having me, you guys. I've heard great things about the organization. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah. So for a quick introduction about Healing Hearts is a student-led organization that aims to spread awareness about health. We provide tips, posts, and information all about health. We also create other media content, including our YouTube interviews, sharing expertise from others in the medical field. So to start with the interview, I would appreciate if you could introduce yourself.
Right. Hi, everyone. My name is Ishita Mann. I am currently the CEO and founder of Youth Helping Youth. I predominantly manage the Saskatchewan branch, but I'm going to be taking over the global operations pretty soon. In terms of my academic endeavors, I'm currently a incoming third-year student at the University of Saskatchewan. I'm currently in my pre-med education years, so I'm studying cellular, physiological, and pharmacological sciences with the aims of going into the MD, MBA program.
Yeah, it's amazing how you're slowly, starting to grow and becoming bigger and bigger. So for our next question, we have, what experience do you have in the field of health?
Yeah, so I think my most direct experience in the field of health is probably volunteering. I have been a really avid volunteer in the health community ever since I was, I believe, 8 years old. But a lot of my primary learning in terms of, what basic healthcare is, essentially what ethics in healthcare look like. A lot of that came from when I was dedicating my time to working at the Battleford Union Hospital in North Battleford, Saskatchewan, for the last 6, 7 years of my life. So a lot of core volunteer work in this community, in this specific field, has really what's attributed to my experience in this community. I think another big factor is the fact that I do come from a family of physicians. My father is a radiologist. So a lot of my education, a lot of my understanding, a lot of what I believe to be ideal faces of healthcare, a lot of that comes from, just personal experiences.
Yeah, that's nice. I also love how you're helping the community through your journey. So for the next question we have, what would be a typical day in your life?
A typical day in my life, just because, and maybe I'll speak from the perspective of being a university student. By the way, I apologize. I have a bit of a sore throat, unfortunately. But a typical day in my life probably starts really early. Um, I am an early riser. I'm usually up by 6:30. And I believe from now on, because classes are going to be in person, I will be taking the bus by 7:30, I believe, to get to campus by 8:15. Probably followed up with about 4 anatomy/physiology based courses, a break, and then followed up with some labs. I also like to schedule in meetings. So because I have a job, I have two jobs essentially, and then I also manage my own extracurriculars and nonprofits. So in my typical day, you'll also see me trying to find a location on campus where there's proper Wi-Fi, not a lot of people, just so I can hop on a Zoom meeting and have a quick conversation with some people. That's typically what a usual workday looks like. I do try to schedule in breaks. Sometimes I'm not successful, but if it's a good relaxing based day, you'd see me just relaxing with my family or spending some quality time with my friends.
Yeah, that's nice. I love how you're very organized and you have everything planned out. It's also nice how, family time is very valuable. So for our next question, I did see in your profile that you are a National Book Award winner. So would you be able to share some information on that?
Yes, so in Canada, the National Book Award is given to a very academically I don't know, excellent student. So usually in your graduation year, you are notified by the government of Canada that you have won this award. I remember I received mine in 2020 just because that was my grade 12 graduation, and it is given by the University of Toronto. So if anybody is ever interested, you can check out their website and you can learn about how you can get nominated. I personally never knew the award existed, so someone in my school nominated me. But I do believe that if you were to go to your teachers and talk to them about it, or maybe a school counselor, they can probably guide you in the right direction. It's definitely a really cool award. There are a lot of perks that come with it, including just the general recognition of your academic efforts, and of course, the title of the National Book Award winner. That's, I feel like, what I can speak to most.
Yeah, that is a great accomplishment, so good job on that. For our next question, we have what would be like your future career plans?
So I am very interested in both the medical and the business side of our society, just because I run my own nonprofit, so I'm very adept at management, and keeping people accountable. So I do believe that for me, the MD MBA program offered by the University of Saskatchewan is the right way to go. It's a 6-year program, with of course the residency coming in later for the MD portion. And essentially, for my medical degree side, I would love to pursue radiology. I do believe that as a field, as a subfield, sorry, radiology has a lot of potential, especially when we're going forward, from the COVID times. A lot of people are relying on these. Scans that tell you how your body is from the inside. And essentially, you need expert advice from people who can give you specific direction as to what you can do to solve a specific problem by looking at it from a very internal point of view. So I do believe that because it's a challenging field, and because it is definitely something that is not very commonly pursued by a lot of people, I'm very interested in pursuing it. I also see that, with radiology, there's a lot of potential for combining it with business ethics. So, looking at how you can set up clinics all around Saskatchewan or even in Canada, with stuff that I learned from my MBA portion of my degree. So that's kind of what my future as of now looks like as a professional working person. Um, I do intend to keep volunteering and keeping my altruistic efforts on, just because I do believe it gives me a bit of a break from the typical academic and professional hustle. So I do intend to keep that going. But definitely from the professional aspect, I do believe to see myself approaching what people usually believe to be very distinct paths, but now is being combined into one.
Yeah, that's nice how you're able to manage all of that and also do what's like fun for you and have breaks and all. So that's nice. I also understand that you're the CEO and founder of the organization Youth Helping Youth Saskatchewan. So what does your organization do, and when would you be able to share some information on your role as the founder?
Yeah, so essentially, I will be taking over the global operations pretty soon. But this idea was born at the SHAD program. A lot of us met, we were able to talk about how there are certain discrepancies that exist between youth and access to meaningful opportunities. Now, opportunities is a really big umbrella term. If I was to break it down for you, Sophia, that would look like scholarships, jobs postings, help for university, helping individuals recognize that there is a transition period that comes between high school and university, and even like middle school and high school. So there are certain aspects in which youth need resources, they need support. Unfortunately, that just isn't there. Maybe because, there are so many of us and there is a very limited support faculty that even schools can offer. So, unfortunately, that one on one advice is not given to youth. What Youth Helping Youth does, we bridge that gap. Instead of relying on teachers, instead of relying on school counselors, we appoint students, essentially people like you and me who have either gone through the system before, who have an idea of, what struggles there are an individual might encounter, how can they bypass those struggles, what are some tips and tricks they can perhaps use. So we really operate on that for youth by youth principle, and we're able to guide a lot of individuals on a yearly basis, help them make better decisions. I think a program like this has a lot of potential, and it has shown consecutively over the years to have a lot of potential in a province like Saskatchewan or Alberta, where suicide rate in youth is really high. And one of the most cited reasons for that suicide is supposed to be stress. Stress coming from, that life planning aspect, stress coming from your school, stress coming from just the unpredictability of how life has been lately with COVID and with all these changes that our country is going through as well. So we really try to bridge that gap and make sure that our youth feel as supported as possible. We do have chapters in BC, in Alberta, Ontario, San Francisco, Seattle, and Saskatchewan, with two more chapters incoming pretty soon. So I'm excited to see how my workload is going to go because I will be stepping into the global ED role, which means instead of just focusing on Saskatchewan, I'll be focusing on all of the branches. And that's going to be very interesting to see how that actually rolls out.
Yeah, the mission for the organization is great, and also how you were able to accomplish that. I really like that. And yeah, good luck on managing the whole overall organization. So for our next question, we have what were some challenges you faced being the founder of one of North America's fastest growing youth-led nonprofits, Youth Helping Youth?
I think the biggest thing that I personally faced was imposter syndrome, just because, any sort of founder doesn't have to be of a company, doesn't have to be of an organization. It can be just of a project or a club as well. Typically, we feel just because our job is to primarily manage other people, we sometimes find ourselves thinking, am I doing enough? Like, am I doing enough? Is there anything else that I can do? So for me, striking that balance between giving my team their autonomy that they need, giving them that trust that's necessarily needed for our operation to go on really smoothly, and of course, trusting myself that what I have done is enough and that I don't need to keep burdening myself with, feelings of guilt, feelings of self-induced guilt if I was to really rephrase that. I think that was my biggest personal challenge. Other challenge I can think of probably is being taken seriously. When you're running a company, but you're not very old. Like when you think of like a CEO, your first interpretation in your mind is probably, okay, it's a man. They're kind of middle-aged, or maybe they're like in their 30s or 40s. They're wearing very professional clothes and they're talking on a stage. I don't know why. I was just imagining Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple. But essentially, that's typically what our mind paints as a picture. And that's not just something that I think. That's a perception that a lot of people have. So being in business meetings and being taken seriously was definitely a challenge. Getting your point across was a challenge. But you learn, you adapt, you grow from these challenges, and you're able to rebrand yourself as a serious individual. And I think for me, running my company was probably the best decision of my life, just because it didn't only change other people's lives, it also changed mine and for the better. So I think any challenge can be good, but you just have to take it in stride.
Yeah, I can definitely relate, and I totally agree with you. Are you planning to pursue this organization like throughout your life?
For now, an optimistic goal is yes. I would love to say that yes, but when I think about perhaps like the future of the organization. Any organization needs a change in leadership. So, maybe going forward, I'd probably see myself being on the board, so being involved still. But maybe instead of me being the executive director, there would be someone else stepping in with fresh ideas, with, new thinking, because that's needed. I'm not going to be a youth forever. I am getting into my 20s fairly soon now. So it's definitely important to keep that mindset and just ready in my mind, but definitely for now an optimistic goal is yes.
Yeah, that's nice. The fact that you want to expand it and, really help youth in a good way. So for our next question, we have what future plans do you have for Youth Helping Youth? It could either be short term or long term.
So short term, I do see us expanding into schools. Oh wow, that was a bad voice crack. I do see us expanding into schools. Essentially, what my goal is to establish Youth Helping Youth as a local club almost, so that students are not necessarily relying on a provincial chapter to keep them going. Instead, we want to make them independent too, so that we give them the resources. We teach them, this is how you find opportunities. This is how you make posts. This is how you run events. We give them these skills, teach them those attributes, and then they're able to independently work and get started with youth helping youth. So that's a short-term goal. A long-term goal would definitely be to see us converting into a charity, just so we are, sustaining not just provincial individuals, but we're able to expand to the level of companies like Red Cross or First Aid, or even like, UNICEF, or like other charities and organizations that are operating on a very large market. So that's typically what our long-term goal is for now.
Yes, once again, I really love, your mission and helping you. So for our next question we have, what would be one skill that you gained being part of this organization?
There have been many skills. Um, are you talking in terms of like professional skills?
I guess you could choose.
Okay, so I'll pick professional. I think the biggest skill that I probably learned is public speaking. I was a debater growing up. I've been in debate ever since I was 7 years old. I've been a public speaker ever since then, but it was never to the point where I felt comfortable walking into a room and striking a conversation, even with strangers. So I think definitely public speaking and not being very afraid of having a conversation with a new person, networking. I think those are the two biggest skills that I've taken away from youth helping youth.
That's nice. Oh, for our next question we have, are there any specific projects that you're working on that you would like to share with our viewers?
Yeah, so we have a really cool project coming up. It's called Better Together. Essentially, on August 31st, if you are living in Saskatchewan, and you are under the age of 26, we will be giving closer to 300 mental health kits away for free, just so you are able to transition into your next year of high school or your next year of university with ease. We definitely think this is a really important um, initiative to do at this time specifically, just because even though we saw that in early 2022, a lot of schools returned into person. In fact, many high schools were already operating in person, but no one physically had a full schedule. Not everyone had classes in person. So that has bound to raise some sort of anxiety. Maybe good anxiety, maybe bad anxiety. But either way, there is stresses involved with this transition. So to make our youth feel really supported, we are giving away these mental health kits for free, and you can come grab them at the University of Saskatchewan.
That's a really nice thing that you're doing, and how I guess like typically organizations don't do like they don't help people like like with physical things, so that's nice how you're doing that. So now to go into a little bit of like the COVID situation, how do you think the COVID situation has impacted students and their health?
I think COVID, of course, apart from the physical implications of getting COVID, have definitely impacted students in the sense that, some people had difficulty breathing. Some people just couldn't go to work. Some people couldn't go, have in-person meetings, or like just have spend time with their friends. So I think definitely that was the biggest implication of getting COVID. But even if you didn't have COVID, you were impacted by this pandemic, having to be locked up in our houses. Of course, not literally locked up, but definitely we were inside our houses, for a very extended period of time. We are humans in general are not people who are confined to one places. We've always been wanderers. We wander from one place to another. So having that ability taken away from us, just because of the circumstances that we were in, unfortunately caused a lot of stress to people. People had anxiety, people had depression. Some people didn't even know how to define these feelings. People were just claiming that they were sad, but in reality what they were experiencing was, temporary depression, or just in, stress induced anxiety from being confined to a location. Another thing I think that probably impacted students a lot was in terms of their academic learning. A lot of kids are not prepared to do online learning. Being in front of a screen for extended periods of time, even if you have a blue light coating on your glasses, people get headaches, people, their eyes were hurting. I remember I saw my brother, like he's in high school right now, but for him it was very difficult. Like he would get headaches all the time from just being on Zoom for about 8 hours a day, just because all classes were being hosted there. So this was definitely a big transition period. And I think that what our community in general has done is adapt to them really easily, really well, I would say, so that if we were to ever, touch wood, we don't have to do this again. But if we do, we're definitely more prepared now to, maybe have alternatives offered. Maybe instead of doing 8 hours of Zoom classes, we'll do 2 hours and see how we can manage the rest. So there are checks and balances that are being created with the situation as it is being monitored, but essentially there have been challenges. You can define them as physical challenges, as emotional, as mental challenges. But I think overall, as a nation, I'm from Canada, we have persevered and we have really, colloquially said, we've really beat COVID, and we were able to come ahead and, be prepared to transition into person.
Yeah, I can definitely relate because I also had to learn online, and it was definitely a struggle in the beginning, but over time we've been able to do it together. So for our next question, we have, what advice do you have for people who are finding it difficult to cope with situations? Like as a youth, there's the constant pressure of school, sports, extracurriculars, and so forth.
Mhm. And maybe I'll add to this too. When COVID happened, I remember a lot of kids, like I've seen this on TikTok primarily. Kids make videos about like how at start of COVID they were in grade 8 or now they're going into grade 10, kind of sort of like that. So, there is that idea of like a loss of childhood too, right? So with that comes a lot of stress. And I know that a lot of people now are going to be trying to compensate for that time lost. They're going to be trying to go to all the parties they missed to make up for all the time that was lost, right? So I would probably say right now is the time to really focus. Focus on what your most recent priorities are, whether that is getting a win in your first ever debate competition, or that is securing a scholarship in the next few months, or getting into that university you want to get into. Make that your goal. Don't focus so much on your long term goals. Don't focus on essentially that pressure that you might feel to have a typical high school or middle school or university experience. Quite frankly, we know there is no typical anymore. There is no concept of typical anymore. So don't get so stuck into that. Do what feels comfortable to you. If you need to take that Friday off to focus on yourself, to give yourself a breather and a break from constant academic pressure, give that to yourself and don't feel guilty about it. If you feel the need to pull an extra all-nighter, even though I don't recommend it, but if you think that your situation demands it, have it without any sort of guilt or shame. But don't get stuck into the long-term goals. Focus on your short-term goals, achieve those one by one. And I promise you, when that list is done, at the end will be your long-term goal and you'll achieve it really easily. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I love that advice, and I truly do think that it could definitely help, in the future and all. So next we have, people often refuse to seek help, especially when it is health related. So do you have any tips or suggestions for them?
I know that there tends to be a big stigma when it comes to seeking help, whether that be medical help, whether that be, like therapy services. I mean, like, I remember for a long time, my dad refused to even get like acupuncture for his shoulder, just because inherently, we might not explicitly say it, but there is a stigma that is associated with seeking help. People think that it somehow risks them as appearing to be weak or incapable in some sort of way. And I definitely think that that's a perception that our community needs to very actively address. The medical community specifically does a very wonderful job of advocating people to, even if I take COVID as an example, to get tested, to seek help when it's needed, to stay home when you have to get psychosocial support if you do desire so. So I think that definitely that advocacy from the medical community is there. But I think as an entire community, we need to tell each other that it's okay to need help. It's okay to go to the doctor once in a while. Doesn't mean that you have a boo-boo, doesn't mean it's gonna hurt or you're gonna appear as weak. It just means that you're here to take care of yourselves and you're able to recognize when it's time to slow down, take a break, rest and reset and recuperate. So essentially, that's what my perspective is. And I do think that as a community, we need to have more conversations about this. You know, maybe typically more so concentrated in the area of mental health. I think a lot of that shame, that guilt does come from that, or even like sexual health. We think about, advocating kids to purchase condoms or contraceptives and any sort of protective measures that can prevent them from getting sexually transmitted diseases, or if they do contract one, there's another stigma associated with, how do you declare it? How do you talk about it? A lot of those conversations need to be had in the entire community, just because I think that the medical community has done a lot more than what is needed for them to do in that advocacy front. Now it's time for us to step up, have those open conversations. And if someone is feeling very confident in, having those conversations, support them. Don't bash them. Back them up and actually be on their side, essentially.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So for our last question, we have you definitely have accomplished a lot from being the youngest Saskatchewan volunteer award medalist to a national book award winner to being the founder of a nonprofit organization reaching over 6,000 students and much more. So what do you feel most proud about out of all your accomplishments?
From my accomplishments, I don't think I necessarily feel proud of any of them. I think feeling proud is a great thing. People should be allowed to feel proud. But I think I just feel grateful. I feel grateful for these accomplishments just because, they have raised my self-esteem. They have restored my faith in the community that I live in. They have shown me that the work that I'm doing is not going unnoticed, and that it does have a greater impact, that impact is not just restricted to me and my social circle, that it is impacting individuals and it's changing their lives. And I think that if I can be, I don't know, like a source of inspiration, or if I can be someone that people want to use as a model to, change their life for the better, I have absolutely no qualms with that. In fact, I don't feel proud about it. I feel grateful for it, because that just means that we are helping one student, we're helping one child to the next. That's just what I like to believe.
Yeah, I guess I've never like thought of it that way, but that's definitely true. So that wraps up our interview. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I don't have anything else to add, but just a thank you to your viewers who viewed in. And again, thank you guys for approaching me with this interview. This definitely has been a really fun time, and I had a great conversation with you, Sophia. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you too. It was a great time talking to you, and it was indeed a pleasure to speak to you. It was also a great experience having you here as part of our interview series. So I do hope you the best for your future.